Under this government, Australian families are struggling with a burden of record household debt, skyrocketing bills, stagnant wages, household spending growing at its slowest pace in the global financial crisis, and declines in real living standards. This summer, Australian families will have to deal with rising power prices and failing reliability because of the ongoing climate wars and the consequent policy paralysis under this coalition government. And for the many Australians struggling to pay the bills, struggling to put food on the table and celebrate the holidays on just $40 a day, well, this Christmas will be very hard. And to those Australians, the phrase "how good is this" rings very hollow and tinny in their ears. Under this government, 120,000 older Australians on the waiting list for home care. The interim report of the Royal Commission into Aged Care described the number of older Australians waiting for home care as unsafe practice, described it as neglect. As Senator Watt says, this is shameful. And last year, 16,000 of our older Australians died waiting for home care. I mean, let's pause to recognise what that means. 16,000 people died whilst waiting for the care they deserve. Working Australians are suffering under the worst wages growth since records began, and Australian workers are experiencing unprecedented wage theft, grappling with insecure work, facing increasing casualisation and fragmentation of work. And 1 in 5 workers in retail, construction, healthcare, accommodation and food service industries has been a victim of wage theft. And under this government, only almost 2 million Australians are either looking for work or looking for more work. But this government doesn't have a plan. So much for the Prime Minister's other mantra, if you have a go, you get a go, because it's not true. It's just not true. Instead of supporting working Australians, this government spent the past week trying to ram through a political attack on workers' ability to get together, run their own union and determine who leads them in their so-called Ensuring Integrity Bill. Their priority was attack on nurses, teachers, firefighters and police officers and their ability to organise for better pay and conditions. And we know this was just the start. Mr Porter's IR review, you know what it's about? Reducing protections. Senator Payne made that clear this week. A government that was not about reducing protections for working people would have done what she refused to do. She refused to rule out watering down unfair dismissal, refused to rule out watering down other protections in the Act. And you know she can't, and I'll take the interjections from those opposites because it's in your DNA, isn't it? You want to go after working conditions. And step one was always get rid of those that defend working conditions so you can go after those protections more easily. But at the same time, the government was throwing themselves at the cynically named Ensuring Integrity Bill. You know what? This government ends its year in tatters, with its integrity in tatters. Defending the indefensible Angus Taylor. Defending the indefensible. Well, how good is Angus Taylor? Well, not. A minister who's misled the parliament 6 times. 6 times over a botched, juvenile political hit job on the Lord Mayor of Sydney. And a minister who, in his very first speech, claimed to have gone to Oxford with Naomi Wolf when she was living in New York at the time. He will forever be remembered as the boy that cried Naomi Wolf. Now, I'll tell you what, you start as you finish, don't you? He started by misleading and he's going to end with a mislead. He's a bloke who fails to declare his interests, in a company investigated for poisoning critically endangered grassland, a minister who routinely fails to disclose his financial interests, but those opposite and the Prime Minister will not hold him accountable. You know, this government is great for Angus Taylor. It's great for Scott Morrison. It's great for their mates. But it's terrible for working people. It's terrible for working people. This government, they only care about themselves. They care about their jobs, their privileges, but they don't care about working Australians. It's one standard for you lot and your mates and another for everyone else.